Our thoughts and feelings come from our memories. Would you agree? So if you take a series of thoughts that are connected to a series of feelings and you combine them, a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, that's called an attitude. So if you have a series of good thoughts that are connected to a series of good feelings, you'll say, I have a pretty good attitude. Wouldn't you agree? If you have a series of negative thoughts that are connected to some pretty negative feelings, what would you say? I have a bad attitude. Yes? So an attitude then is a series of thoughts and feelings that are strung together that ultimately become habituated or automatic. Yes? Now, if you take a series of attitudes and you string an attitude, an attitude, an attitude together, an extended set of thoughts and feelings, that's called a belief. And as we said, beliefs are thoughts and feelings you keep thinking over and over again till you hardwire them in your brain and you emotionally condition them into your body. So then, a belief then is a reflection of a long-standing attitude. Would you agree? So then, if thoughts and feelings create a state of being, we've been saying that all weekend, then your attitude is a state of being. Would you agree? Yes. And would you agree then that a belief is just a longer standing state of being, an elongated state of being? Yes? And if you take beliefs and you string beliefs together, a belief, a belief, a belief, a belief, and a belief, that's called a perception. And the perceptions have everything to do with the choices we make, the relationships we have, the creations that we participate in, and the behaviors that we enact. So then, our thoughts and feelings create attitudes, our attitudes create beliefs, and our beliefs create perceptions. So in order to change your beliefs and perceptions, wouldn't you agree that you would have to change your state of being? Yes? And if thought is the electrical charge and feeling is the magnetic charge, wouldn't you agree that you would have to create an energetic shift in your brain and body that would transcend your physical? Yes? Yes? When you make a belief to walk across a set of hot coals, you're not wondering whether the coals are hot any longer. You've made the decision, and that decision is with such firm intention that you are no longer thinking about those hot coals. You are thinking about being somebody else. Yes? Yes. Now, the placebo effect is a great example of a belief. You give somebody a sugar pill, you give them a saline injection, and all of a sudden their symptoms go away. And doctors used to say, well, that's the placebo. And the placebo is so amazing that they have to do double-blind and triple-blind studies on something like Prozac because 40 to 60% of the people who take the sugar pill, they get better. The sugar pill works just as well as the Prozac. So then do you have to take a pill to do that? Isn't that just a belief as a state of being? So you think that you're better, you begin to feel better, you begin to act better, and next thing you know, if you're thinking and feeling and acting, you're in a state of being better. Now, once you're in a state of being better, when you're in a state of being, the universal intelligence or the power within you endorses whoever you're being. And so when they did the experiments, for example, where they had a group of people that had Parkinson's disease, and they had what's called shuffle gait or festination gait or pill rolling, or tremors, that these are involuntary things that these people cannot control. But when they gave them the saline injection and told them it was the greatest medicine that they've ever come up with, do you know that a good portion of those people, all of a sudden, all of their tremors went away, all the pill rolling went away. Because they believed that they were better and they moved into a new state of being. In anticipation of getting better, they got better because the body literally connected to that potential. How many people are with me? Yes. They just believed in a future that they couldn't see or experience with their senses yet. But they tied that belief to something outside of them. You with me? Yes. So now think about this. They said, oh, well, that's just a placebo, the docs that were doing the experiment. And all of a sudden, one doc said, well, let's check to see what actually happened in the brain. So they injected a radioactive dye into the bloodstream that competes with dopamine because Parkinson's is dopamine deficiency. So they said if the radioactive dye goes into the bloodstream and it begins to attach or compete with their same receptor sites as dopamine, if we see a lot of radioactive dye, they didn't make dopamine, we can't explain what happened. But if they automatically started making dopamine, then the dye wouldn't appear in the brain because the dopamine's already in the receptors. You understand what I'm saying? So when they checked, all these people were making their own dopamine, but they weren't making it. They moved into a state of being, and the power within them began to endorse who they were being. You with me? Come on. Yes. So then what happened next was that with every placebo experiment, people do really well until about 24 hours for a majority of them, because after 24 hours, their symptoms come back. Now, why is that? They return back and see the same people who take care of them and feel sorry for them. They go to the same place and they hang out with the same guys and play cards and how's your condition? Oh yeah, mine's good. And they reaffirm it through their environment. How many people understand? They return back to the same identity equal to how they identify with every person, thing, and experience in their life, and they return back to the old self. How many people are with me? So then my question is, could you move into a state of being, listen, in anticipation of a possibility without any need for anything outside of you? And can you begin to connect with that potential and so well that you begin to anticipate some change in a state of joy and exuberance? What would happen? Are you willing to even try that out? And so it's theoretically possible based on what we said. Would you agree? Turn to the person next to you and explain. So now reason with me. If a placebo only lasts for a day, we agreed on that, right? For the most part. If it only lasts for a day, and you just told me that it's possible then to not rely on anything outside of you to produce the same effect, that you begin to pick a potential of you being better and anticipation of you believing in that possibility, your body begins to physiologically change as if the possibility was real because the body begins to get a new energetic signature. You with me? That if it only lasts for a day, and the examples that we shared, then wouldn't it be a good idea then if you were going to do this without a placebo, without anything outside of you, placebo, wouldn't it be a good idea to remind yourself who you're going to be every day and remind yourself who you're not going to be every day to be greater than your environment? You didn't get that, did you? You got it. Because you're going to walk back into the same reality, the same world, and as long as you are still holding on to those addictions, or we're holding on to those same addictions, then if you were addicted to chocolate and I slid the chocolate cake in front of you, you're going to have a rough moment there. Wouldn't you agree? You're going to start physiologically responding, salivating, stomach gurgling, voices in your head, just one piece, come on, everybody else is eating it, I can have one bite. Would you agree? We could say that your body automatically or autonomically responded. Yes? And it began to physiologically change. And your body became the mind, and it was telling you to do it, even though you consciously said, I'm not eating chocolate anymore. So the body was greater than the mind in an addiction, yes? So if you break the addiction to the chocolate cake, and I slid the chocolate cake in front of you, wouldn't you agree that if you broke the addiction to the chocolate cake, you could eat it or not eat it? Right? Now, you're not addicted to chocolate. I put the chocolate cake in front of you. I'll have a piece. I don't know. You wouldn't really have a tug any longer, would you? The environment would no longer be regulating your internal state. Yes? Yes? So then, if you have an addiction to something or someone within you, and you use some person or thing in your life to reaffirm that addiction, Wouldn't you agree that the moment you return back to your life and you see that person, you go to that place, you do that thing, you unconsciously or automatically begin to return back to that state physiologically, and you don't even know how you got there? You're on the couch with a bowl of mashed potatoes with a lot of sour cream, and you just said an hour earlier you were going to get in shape. Are you listening? Because Pavlov's dog, you ring the bell after a period of time and feed it a meal. You just ring the bell and it's going to salivate automatically. That's how powerful the environment is. You take an alcoholic and you put him in a situation where you give them the first drink and you measure their codes or their biological effects after that first drink. They literally have an activation of old receptor sites that causes them to return back to the same self. You take that same alcoholic, and instead of giving them the drink, you move them to the environment in which they drank, and guess what? They associate that environment with the old self, and their body physiologically changes, as if they had their first drink. Are you listening to me now? So when you overcome the addiction within you in your life, and you're sitting there, and your body's raging, and you break free from the chains of that addiction, and you no longer have the addiction, wouldn't you agree that you can walk out into your life and your environment is no longer regulating automatically or subconsciously how you're thinking and feeling? You're greater than your environment. Because if a state of being then is a set of thoughts and feelings that are aligned, then for the most part that state of being is unconscious, because that's who we are 95% of the time. So we return back to the old self unconsciously and automatically if the body is the mind. How many people are with me? Turn the person next to you and explain. I'll go a little further, then we'll take a break. Come on, give me your best. So could we say then, that the person who chews on glass, the decision to overcome that stimuli or stimulation, the decision to overcome the glass is made with an energy that's greater than their addiction? Yes. Turn to the person next to you and explain that.